One of many intriguing aspects about the water lily in world mythology and religious symbolism is the plant's shared importance to cultures that were isolated from each other historically. Some of these civilizations were separated by oceans and demonstrate no substantial evidence of prehistoric contacts. Yet so many distant peoples have adopted the practice of associating the water lily, symbolically, with the sun, with a cosmic serpent, a divine bird, or some sort of winged creature, and also with the image of a symbolic tree of life. For example, a spectacular pectoral ornament once worn by the famous child king of ancient Egypt, Tutankhamun, some 3,400 years ago, placed the image of water lilies over his heart to symbolize his future reincarnation as Egypt's earliest creator spirit, Nefertum, in the afterlife. Ancient mythic traditions held that Nefertum, in the form of the Nilotic lotus, created life by elevating a solar disk on a turquoise boat into the heavens from a lotus patch on Egypt's famous river. So an Egyptian bud and blossom motif, the symbol of eternal life, sustains the scene, while two flanking cobras bear additional solar disks beside the central sun, thus forming a triad of solar disks on the blue barge of the heavens. The image of three redundant suns is a symbol of the Nilotic lotus itself, because each ascendant blossom naturally bears the aspect of the sun and lasts for 3 successive days of flowering. A variation on this theme is observed on another Egyptian object of art, that Egypt's famous sun god known as Horus, who normally assumes the form of a blue falcon with a golden disk set upon his head. But here, Horus is personified, and he sits upon a lotus bud and blossom motif between two attendant sun-bearing cobras. Far and away from the banks of the Nile in the Near East, in what Americans call the Holy Land of the Bible, the Phoenicians worshipped a goddess by the name of Kadesh, who shares many attributes of winged goddesses from Egypt, many of which are associated with the lotus of the Nile. Even though the winged features are missing in this portrayal of the deity, Kadesh sports an Egyptian hairdo and carries a sun on her head, with lotus blossoms in one hand and a serpent in the other. Then, across the Aegean Sea from the Near East, the Greeks borrowed as well the lotus bud and blossom motif from ancient Egypt to decorate large urns in Athens, this dating some 2,300 years ago. The lotus flowers are sustained by two coiling dragons that serve as handles for the vessel. The symbolic connections between the lotus and a serpent, the sun and immortal life motifs in Egypt, in the Near East, and the Mediterranean can be explained by the relatively close proximity that these regions shared with one another, which obviously facilitated the sharing of artistic practices in the historical past. But this explanation cannot account for the appearance of these same symbolic associations on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, in tropical America, where the water lily was similarly identified as a plant of the gods, with similar symbolic associations. Former Maya kings in the grandiose temple complex of Copan in Honduras were depicted as lotus trees of life in this portrayal of the deity. Their vegetative figures were covered with the intertwining bodies of what we now call water lily serpents, from which Maya gods and divine animals would dangle. The ears and the tails of these serpents produce water lily flowers, one of which we observe here is consumed by a divine fish, as the face of the reptilian owner looks on. At the famous Maya site of Palenque, we observe serpentine stalks of a water lily plant growing from an underwater skull. The stalks terminate with a full-blown lotus flower, from which the Maya sun god emerges. Here once again, a serpent-like motif and sun god manifest themselves in the guise of an aquatic flower. The famous water lily serpent of the Maya often produces blossoms that extrude bird feathers, or in other instances, the flower is symbolized by a cosmic bird with outstretched wings. So like Horus of Egypt, yet another symbolic feature of the New World has independent origins with respect to its analogous counterparts in Africa and Eurasia. The independent origin of similar water lily symbols throughout the world likely stems from the fact that the human mind naturally imagines visual connections between the physical aspects of the plant's flowering stalks and its symbolic attributes. For example, the recurrent association of the plant with the sun owes to the visual properties of the plant's flowers, which bear a distinct aspect of a radiating solar orb. The behaviors of the flower also reflect a solar association by their daily observable habit of opening to the dawning of the sun for 3 consecutive days, and then closing at dusk with the setting of the sun. And during flourishing, the plant's bright and many-petaled flowers suggest, in a certain way, the image of a fluffed-up bird perched upon a pillar, the feathers having the appearance of the lotus petals, hence the feather and bird symbolism. As for the plant's symbolic connections with snakes, the water lily's supple and tubular stalks suggest the image of a serpent when they extend from underwater plant stems and rise to the water surface with a swollen bud, the bud suggesting a snake head. Or perhaps even more catching to the human eye is the snake-like qualities and behavior of water lily stalks after their solitary flowers have been pollinated. Spent stalks exhibit the distinctive habit of contorting and spiraling downward into the water like a serpent, so as to pull the ripening capsules of the plant underwater for protection. So no wonder the plant has been associated habitually with divine serpents on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Although rarely stated, like in Egypt, the water lily stands out as the most frequently employed vegetative motif in a region of the New World known to anthropologists as Mesoamerica, Middle America.